Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Men and Sex. I'm your host, Mr. Wood. This is a podcast all about normalizing conversations about sexuality in a world that makes very little space for men to talk about it. And a lot of the time, I bring on guests to share their own experiences, their own dances with sexuality. And today, I have a really special guest. His name's Caleb Morton. He goes by Jaguar, and we have an interesting story to share that even got us here. So I'm going to introduce Jaguar, and then we'll get into some of the fun of how potent it is that we're even having this conversation. So welcome, Jaguar.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, what we're going to talk about today is a deep, deep, deep subject, and it may be triggering for some people. So I'll just give you that warning in advance that this is a deep, profound subject that can be complex, and we're going to do our best to talk from our own experience. But first, I want to share a little bit about how me and Jaguar know each other and the profoundness that we're even here having this discussion here. Basically, our relationship began with me just spewing a bunch of projections, uh, judgments, and I mean, basically terrible things on Jaguar. But here's the thing: it was at a Sacred Sons event, which is a beautiful worldwide organization. If you haven't checked them out, please do. It's for men, for males. Jaguar is wearing the sweatshirt. And so in this space, it was organized and held and structured in a way that I was able to do this, and Jaguar was able to know that it was about me. And it's this profound, I think it's this profound understanding that's missing in the world that I had never even met Jaguar. We had never even had a conversation. And I had all these ideas, I had all these judgments that probably connected to some part of myself that I haven't accepted, or someone else in my past that there was a wound that I haven't healed. And so I had this charge with Jaguar, and I had never even met him. And it's this is the profoundness of men's work, is how, here we are sitting and having this conversation. I just want to open it up to some of your perspective on that.
Man, it was wild. It was um because when you stepped up to say that you did have a charge, like I could just feel it in my spirit that it was about me, you know? And then when you said like it's gonna be big, it's gonna be a lot, it's gonna be juicy, I was like, "Ooh, okay, get ready." Like, all right. And I'd already started preparing myself before you said anything about who it was about. And then then you said me, and so I was already ready for when uncle like asked if I wanted to step in, and was like, fuck yeah, let's go. Um and I'm very grateful for the work that I've done up to this point, so I did know it wasn't about me as you went, because ooh, you went off. Like I don't know if I have ever heard anyone be quite so creative in the charge clearing like that.
Oh my
And so
god.
like I became really grateful that, and just for everybody who has no idea of what kind of imagery it is,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
stand right in front of each other, uh, and Mr. Wood just like speaks to me everything that he projects onto me. But the man facilitating had this idea and was like, hold on, grabs a full length mirror and then has me hold it up. So that way, Mr. Wood is just looking right at himself rather than actually looking at me. And I've got to say, I'm so glad that he did that, because maybe like halfway through, I started laughing myself. And you're not supposed. You're just supposed to be like deadpan, no reaction. And I think it was when you spouted out, "Not worth a mouse's fart."
I
Like,
said, I said, I don't trust you for a mouse fart.
yes. I just I just turned my head slowly and just like did that had that moment that even though I still couldn't even look at you, just even energetically I had to turn away, um just to try to keep myself quiet in that. But like, but even on top of like how funny it is in retrospect, it was also like it was a lot. It was
Yeah.
moving a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And I know like
Yeah.
we talked about it a little bit afterwards and how like even with knowing that it's not about me, that it was
Yeah.
about you, like there was so much energy, like my legs were even shaking,
Yeah.
like about halfway through, like, and then like it, as we were finishing up, I just had to like stand there and shake it for a minute, just be glad that it was kind of done.
Yeah.
But it was this absolutely gorgeous moment and this beautiful process that like really just got allowed you to see exactly, what you thought you were seeing.
Yeah.
And then for me to really see this beauty of you not wanting to hold on to that
Mm.
and just wanting to be clear of it so that you could actually get to know me. And that
Totally.
is I think honestly it's more powerful. I think it might be more powerful to be like on the receiving end of that. Now that I'm really thinking about it and like looking back on like on our situation, because like I really get to see that strength and bravery and beauty in you
Mm.
of like being like, yeah, I know this isn't me and I know I don't want it.
Hmm.
So let me just get rid of it so we can make this connection. And like, man, so few, like, not enough people do that just in like regular life. You just walk around carrying all of it.
Yeah. And I want to simplify, tease it apart just a little bit more for the audience. So once again,
Yeah.
Jaguar and I were in this space. I had never met him, and yet I had judgments about him, and I had things in my head, and I had feelings, charge, whatever. So I want to reflect this to the listeners is think about the people that you may judge or not know in your life. How could it be about them? You don't know them. You don't know anything about them. And so this is one of the deepest things in my path of men's work is realizing these things going on in my head, these things I'm feeling in my body, they're about me. And it was so beautiful to have this space and to I really trusted the leadership or I wouldn't have gone in like I did. And I was very grateful for your ability to be there, and I was so grateful that the mirror was there the whole time because I think it helped both of us know even more that it was about me. And sharing with the listeners, imagine having a charge with someone and you go and share that you have that charge with them, like, hey, I got this feeling, I don't like this about you, whatever. Imagine saying that to someone, but then they put a mirror and you're just saying it in the mirror to yourself. It's extremely profound to say all these projections you have about another person, and you're just there looking at yourself and the judgments that you have and listening to them like, oh, wow, okay. Do I judge these things about myself, or what is this? So
Hmm.
grateful, and just speaks to the power of how we're meeting as men in these spaces that I mean, where else can you go up and be like, I don't like you, I don't know you, I don't like you, and then go into a process and here we are closer on the other side and more
Hmm.
connected and having more respect for one another and allowing whatever that was in between us to clear out.
Yeah, I don't really know of many people that would be happy if you just walked up in the grocery store and said, I've got this projection about me that I see in you. So I'm going
Yeah.
to stand here and let you have it.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend that.
Neither
Definitely
would I.
needs the container and the men to hold that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, they did an absolutely beautiful job.
as Jaguar and I were connecting and we stayed in touch after the event in San Diego, we were just talking, and he had mentioned something really personal about his own journey, and it was basically a reclamation of his masculine side, of the part of him that could be labeled as man. And it really hit me in a deep way. It's connected in my own life, there, in my own experiences, and so I wanted to have Jaguar come in and tell a little bit of his story of dipping his toes in the world of, and you use your own language because it was your experience, but how I interpret it was finding your way as, what is my gender, what gender do I want to claim, what do I want to embody as this human being. So let's just dive into your experience for the audience.
Yeah, let's go. All right. Um, so I'll start it off by just I guess maybe a bit of a disclaimer that I want to be just very clear that this is my story. This is how I got here. This is in no way trying to say anything about anyone else's story, where they're at, or where they should be, because for one, there are no shoulds in life. It's your experience, have your experience, live what's true, you know? And so, and on that living what's true, for a while, being called a man didn't feel true. There was something about it that like hit me sideways, like, somebody maybe calling you like Mr. Snow, like, oof. I mean, it's kind of an element, it's a thing in nature, but that ain't my name, you know, like just something grating at me. But like rather than really dive into the why and what was underneath that, I just like ran with it and was like, okay, well, if I don't like that, then clearly that's not for me. And then for years, I just didn't really know what to do with this or like had any kind of words or understanding of it. And it wasn't until maybe my third year of college that I heard the word non-binary. And like I was playing a game in college in some room and it was somebody else's conversation and I dead stopped the game and I was like, wait, what? Huh? And then the person that was like having the conversation thought that I was like trying to bust in to like make some kind of like comments and things, but I truly was just like wanting to understand and wanting to know, you know? So I start learning about it, what this is. I start diving down. I'm like, oh my God, there's like another option besides, being male and being female. Holy fuck, you know? Over the years, I did more research and I found out that like there's indigenous cultures that embrace this as well and like understood and knew, like Native American tribes that would refer to it as two spirit. People who have the spirit of man and woman and who are closer to both, and they're very highly revered as like spiritual leaders for having that connectivity and that understanding of both sides. So like seeing this, it was really amazing to see throughout history how it's not just some modern phenomenon, it's been a thing the entire time we've been on the planet. um so it was this really interesting experience, but like then I got married pretty young. I was 25, and I opened that container, saying things like, "Hey, look, I'm non-binary. I think I'm bisexual, and I don't know if I can do monogamy." All three really big things that when it came truly right down to it, I just hadn't really dug in with myself and truly understood myself on like that deep level that I needed to like
Mm.
really understand myself. You know. Um, and so like we opened this container and I mean the marriage was fantastic for a long time. We had our difficulties, we had our challenges, and then eventually, those challenges overcame us being together. And so we went our separate ways. But now we're back to a space that, we're all good. And like we can spend time together. And so I really appreciate that. But after that was like that first time that I started like recognizing that like this whole bisexual, no, it's not really the move. Like that's not true about me. And then I also recognize that's monogamous thing. That's not really true. Like it's not there. And then the third one, the non-binary one, um, it wasn't until I dated someone else after my marriage. She questioned it, not in a, disrespecting way, but just in this like, I really don't understand it because your energy is like this, but you're saying this. So I want to be respectful and like understand, so help me understand. And I did what I could, but like it just never really vibed. And I don't mean it in a she couldn't understand it way. It was just like, this doesn't make any fucking sense kind of way. Oh, sorry about that. I hope I can curse on this
No, no,
podcast.
no.
I
Yeah, yeah, we're
didn't even
good.
think to ask.
Yeah, we're good.
um, and so it wasn't until that like it kind of got back in my head a little bit. And then it was after that relationship that I really did the deep work to heal myself and really look at like what was truly going on to like cause all of these different patterns in my life. And that was when I recognized and found that I had a wound in my relationship with the masculine. I mean, my own masculine energy. I mean, other men, like just like throughout most of my life, I had this like resistance to being around men, being close to men, being open with men, being vulnerable with men, all of it. I was like, nope, nope. This is easy with women. I can hang out with women all day, but nope, I wouldn't do that. And so as I started like healing that, working with men like Kevin Walton, like Vance Brown, they really helped me in a big way. And I finally hit this point of recognizing, no, I'm a man. Like I am, and I've gone through all these things, so I need to start going by he, him again. And what was interesting to me about all of this was that the scariest thing about the whole journey was actually stopping identifying as they them,
Wow.
was going back on that and saying, I no longer identify as they them. I identify as he, him. And I
Wow.
mean, I want to also be clear for the listeners. I identified strong enough as they them. I have a tattoo on my hip of they them. And I like it's a beautiful tattoo. I
Yeah.
don't intend to get it removed or anything. Now it's just
Yeah.
part of my story,
Yeah.
But like I tattooed it. And my line at the time when I got it was like, well, if you're gonna see that area, you might as well know, you know?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to thank you for your courage to come and share your story because as you said, and that's why I've really made this platform is for men to come and share their stories so that we can hear one another's stories and stop feeling so isolated in whatever version of experience that each of us is in, and that
Yeah.
we can, I believe, find threads of each other's journeys in our own. And
Mhm.
I think the most common one that most of us can relate with is a lack of a healthy image of men. It's not something that is out on being displayed in the world of like
All right,
of
that
what
makes
a
sense.
healthy man is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's really not.
especially coming out of generations where it was in our lifetimes, the parents, a couple generations before ours, it's like this is where the big divorces started to come in. This is where there's a lot of single moms. There's coming
Mhm.
out of war and a lot of toxic masculinity, you could say, going on, and so it was easy. It's still easy to go, oh men, like no, I don't want anything to do with that. There, da 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 da. There's such a long list that can be said right now in the world about men, and so I think that's a thread that a lot of us can connect on is either not having a healthy representation or being like, what what do I model myself after as a man?
Mm. There's
Like,
actually something that you just kind of mentioned that I've done a lot in like my own coaching and my men's group. It's this focus on shifting this narrative from like using the word toxic to the word unhealthy the majority of the time. And
yeah,
like, not for everything, because I mean there's things that we eat that are literally toxic that you need to use
yeah,
the word toxic for.
yeah,
Um, but like when it comes to like people and like relations and stuff, I really try to start encouraging people to move away from that,
totally,
because that's actually one of the things that I've recognized was a challenge for me. Because when it
yeah,
came to like the feminist movement, which was very needed to like
yes,
slap everybody out of this, like hypnosis we were in for a long time,
yeah,
that kind of attitude towards men of like saying things like toxic masculinity and using that kind of terminology for any time a man was out of line seemed to start pushing men towards this. So like, how do I even exist now? Like, what do I do? And then because we had this such a long era of unhealthy masculinity, men were stuck in this. I can't talk to people. I can't go to people. I can't ask people. But everyone's telling me I'm terrible just for existing. So what do I do? And so you've got men who don't want to be masculine, and that was a big part of it in my case. Was like I didn't want to be recognized or associated with men with this masculine energy or anything like that. So I was like, well, nope, nope, I'm not one of them. Nope.
mm-hmm.
And like it was so much of this like this narrative of being a man is toxic when there's choices that you can make that yes are severely unhealthy, and it can come from a lot of like unconscious behavior. But I feel that if we as a society can start shifting that narrative and start recognizing like when to start saying like unhealthy, like, hey, yes, this thing you just chose to do, that's really unhealthy.
Totally.
You are not a toxin to my life, but
Yeah.
if you continue to act and choose these things, then I will have to remove myself, you know? It removes that belittlement that I feel has like really permeated the space and made it so hard for men to just be open and vulnerable.
Yeah, and it's like you said, that label, it makes it easy to reject, reject
Mm,
aspects of self that might tie to that. Anything that might resemble that. I don't want to be that. And
yeah.
we live in these times where, there's that great quote about hard men and hard times and how it leads to soft times and or soft men and hard times, and it like goes back through the loop. And I think we're in a time where men are being able to be more heart centered, more emotionally intelligent and connected to themselves in that way. So what I've noticed is most men that reject maybe the more assertive yang masculine attributes of themselves, because they're connected to their emotions, and there's maybe a softness to them that is like, they're hearing that, they're feeling that out in the world. Oh, this is bad, this part of man is bad. Even if we look at the patriarchy, like the patriarchy is bad. That's basically, once again, you're just a man and you're bad because you are inherently a co-creator of the patriarchy just by being alive. And of course there's attribute, it's such an important movement to point at those things. And there's unintended impacts, as we say in men's work. There's unintended impacts, and what we're speaking about today is like aspects of rejecting those masculine sides is an unintended impact.
Yeah. I mean, anytime you demonize anyone by association, you're removing an aspect of their humanity, you know? So like, yes, oppression by any group should not be happening. An oppression by a patriarchal system should not be happening. Just as if the situation reversed and it were an oppressive matriarchy, then it would be just as wrong as an oppressive patriarchy. You know, Currently we do live in an oppressive patriarchy, so we need to understand what that is, understand where it came from, but also like there's an aspect of understanding the wounded little boys that are running that patriarchy that we just see as these demon men of like, oh, you're the personification of the devil. And yes, many have done some really bad things. But like, if we can understand that, like, underneath that is a scared, wounded little boy, then you can have that compassion. It's like, what is going on, dude? Like, are you okay? You know? Yeah, you might not be able to walk up to like, the big CEOs or like the whoever in government and just like be
Rothschilds.
like, dude, are you okay? You might not be able to do that, but like, maybe you can. Maybe you are personal friends with somebody in power, and like they haven't had somebody just say, are you okay? Do you need a hug? I don't know, and it's not like just a hug is gonna save everybody, but
Totally.
fucking love and compassion, that will start moving the needle. And so like anytime you're just dehumanizing and belittling, you're avoiding what's actually going on. You're taking your own pain from being oppressed in a situation
Right.
and then just throwing it right back and belittling and dehumanizing, and like you're just adding more fire to that fire you know
Yeah, it's like
and
I see a mirror or something, and it's just kind of like that energy is bouncing off and going in a different direction, but it's the same kind of energy. And I think that's a lot of the unintended ricochet that I'm seeing here in this discussion, which is like, yeah, these are wounded little boys. These are wounded little boys that probably had terrible fathers, probably had neglect, probably had abuse, whatever. The list, I can't even imagine some of the lists of what it would take to live like that, to live that disconnected,
yeah,
to live that separate, to live not caring about people in that way. Yeah, that takes a hardening of the heart, and that takes repetition of those things. And for us to harden our hearts and act that way and get brutal and call names and label this, that is what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of men that won't claim that or won't step into that. And we need that energy in healthy men. We need strong, assertive men that are creators to counteract that energy that we're experiencing on the planet today.
Yeah. I think like that narrative of how like emotions make you weak, you know, like being feminine is unmanly and all this stuff, like that's gotta fundamentally shift since all of us have masculine and feminine energies within us. And if you deny one, you're denying a very important aspect of yourself. And so like these men who are more connected with their feminine side, which I'm one of them, you know, especially when I was younger, I was much more connected with my feminine, and that was like a lot of the projection that got put onto me, and a lot of what I just started kind of going with of like, well, okay, like well, okay, okay, like sure. And now as I've gotten older and really dropped into it and recognized it, like, yeah, sure, my masculine energy is stronger, but like my energy is beautiful, and I love being able to go back and forth. But now I understand how to be assertive and be my full self with compassion, with empathy, and with observation for what's going on, you know, with the other person. And when I can't observe it, I get curious, you know, just asking questions so that way I can just better build a bridge between us and really just like have that connection of like, hey, like, yeah, we don't know each other, but there's no reason that we need to be fighting or having this kind of altercation. Like, are you okay? And the thing is, like, it doesn't weaken you, you know, to sit with a man and just go, are you okay? Having compassion, like there's this wild misconception of it being weak. And the more compassionate I get, the more I'm just like, how did that even start?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's a level of mastery to it's a level of mastery to be able to hold both, to be able to hold the compassion but also the fierceness. You know, that's the language I love so much lately is the fierce love, is to have that compassion and connection to others and bring that fierceness simultaneously. That's the mastery, in my opinion. And
Mm,
I'm curious what parts of, okay, so you were, for a chunk of your life, you were in the identification of non-binary, they, them, you've reclaimed he, him. What are the aspects of being a man, of masculinity, that you're in really enjoying embodying or reclaiming or bringing into your life experience currently?
understanding how to be strong and dominant without being abusive about it, you know? Because I have a very strong energy. I have a pretty dominant energy, and it's not in any way of me considering myself better than anyone. It's just this energy of like when shit needs to get done, I get it done, you know? And when like decisions aren't being made, I am happy to go ahead and step up and make that decision. I have no problem with that, you know? And like for most of my life, like some kind of emergency would happen, and like I would usually be pretty clear and like be able to help direct things. Like I remember one time, me and a bunch of friends were out at a park just like having this picnic. We had a bunch of big blankets and a lot of stuff around, and a rainstorm came out of nowhere. Like just one of those that just rolls in, flash floods, goes, and like floods. If you've been in Georgia much, it either pours like a little bit for like 20 minutes, or it dumps like crazy for 5 seconds or like, you know, 5 minutes. And in the moment as it first started, I just drop immediately into this. You grab this, you grab this, you grab this, everybody, you grab that corner, you grab that corner. I got this one. And then like pulled it together and then yank that thing underneath the tree. And that's just something that comes so naturally to me. And now as I reclaim my masculinity, I see that as an aspect of healthy masculinity, to have a dominant stance, you know? But there's a lot of people who think that being dominant means, you know, like having control, and like I mean, of course, I'm not about to start diving into like bedroom talk about it because it's a whole different world of
Yeah.
domination.
Yeah.
But like, having control, let's just leave it there, but like to control somebody is to manipulate them, and that is a very unhealthy thing. But like when I started learning it, I started thinking about it in the way of me being dominant to my dog. I have this beautiful 3-year-old golden doodle who is super energetic, super loving, and he barks to say hello while he's running up on people. And so they think he is scary sometimes when
Mm.
really he's about to get there and just be like, "Hi, how are you?" So I have to be commanding, and I have to be dominant over him to make
Mm.
sure that he's not gonna hurt anybody, make anybody feel like he's gonna hurt them or anything like that. And when I equated it to that, I recognized, oh, okay, so being dominant isn't just some unhealthy thing. It can be used as that
Yeah.
in any way. But like that domination comes out of a place of love for me wanting to make sure that he's safe,
Right.
you know? So like that's been one of the interesting things for me to be kind of playing with and leaning back into. Because for the longest time as I was identifying as non-binary, I rejected so much of that of myself. I still embodied it in many ways, but I tried to make myself smaller, and I tried to like kind of shrink a little bit, and I tried to be much more like, well, what do we all want to do? Let's make
Yeah.
sure everybody has this consensus.
Wow.
Or like when it came to making plans, I would like try to find the group first
Yeah.
and then go, does everyone want to do this? Or do you all want to do this? Or maybe we could do this, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And now I've hit this place of like, hey guys, I'm gonna do this thing. Who wants to join me?
Yeah.
5 people join me, or nobody joins me,
Yeah.
and I go do the thing. You know?
Man, that's so powerful to think about how you were in your path you were rejecting aspects of your leadership because it wasn't, in whatever way it didn't fit the mold of the identity. And here you are shaping it. And oh my gosh, do we need healthy leadership in this world or what? We need as many people sharpening their edges around leadership as possible. And it's so easy to project on people in power and in leadership. It's like leadership is the willingness to be the one that takes the fault. Like when you do that thing, oh, grab this, grab this, grab this. If it doesn't work out, who's to blame? You, because you came up with the ideas and you put them out there. And so,
Mhm.
in my own experience, there's these continual layers of expansion into leadership that it's it's a never ending growth process. So it's I love feeling into how that part of your life was rejected or repressed away a little bit, and now it's something that you see yourself being so natural with, and now you're honing it in, and it's like, man, where are you going to be with that in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years,
Yeah.
having gone into a direction of reclaiming that? And especially, as you're on the leadership track with an organization like Sacred Sons, you'll need those skills and you'll continue to hone those skills, and the world's going to be a better place from you having those skills and having spent the time to develop them.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah. I truly hope so. I do absolutely love this kind of work, and like I love what I've started doing and what I've been building. And like to me, leadership is not about like building a following or having people follow you. It's about leading yourself and teaching other people how to lead themselves,
Mm,
you know? Like I find teachers, and like one of the first things I try to look for is, are you building a following, or are you teaching people how to lead their own lives? You
mm,
know? And like for me, if I see that there is like leadership in a space of like trying to build a following, like for their own attention, things like that, no, I'm good. I'm
mm,
gonna step away from that. But
mm,
if I see a leader who is really working towards making other people their best versions, so then eventually that person can step away from that leader and then go lead themselves. That's when I'm just like, cool, that's the thing.
mm,
Like I mentioned one teacher earlier, Kevin Walton, who has a group called the Light Beings, and he's done a fantastic job with that. He's also one of the leaders of Sacred Sons, and that was one of the first things I really noticed about him was that, like, yes, he leads people, but he's really teaching people how to be their fullest and best and most fully expressed self. And like, as we like go off, he's like, fly little birdie, like, go do your thing. Like, when I started my men's group, he was just like applauding me on, just like, yeah, go do the thing. And like check in with me every once in a while, like see about like how that's going, and then check in about my life, and just like this genuine, like, I feel this genuine pride from him of like, you're doing well. And then one of my other teachers, Derek Taylor, also known as Shaman Ra, he's the same way. Yeah, he has like a lot of people who that you could call a following, but he's not like, trying to like get them all to like come like just like do just his stuff for this attention. He is teaching them, and then he recognizes and looks at somebody and says, okay, this is the teaching that you need to help you progress here. Okay, let me give you that. I hope you accept it. You accepted it? Great. You embodied it? Great. Okay, now we can go to this next level. And now you've gotten that. Cool. Now let's go to the next level. He's like really good at honing in on like what somebody needs and helping provide that, like really good at nurturing in this, like in this really amazing way. And both of these men have been such an amazing example of healthy masculine leadership that I am so grateful to have them in my life, um, because they showed me that it is possible to be a healthy masculine leader without doing so many of the very unhealthy things that are associated with masculine leadership. You
Yeah.
know, back in the day, I had resistance to the whole spirituality community and this kind of work because of this archetype of really unhealthy masculine leaders. People who would just go in and like abuse their situation and like in all kinds of ways, And as I'm stepping into leadership, I'm having to be very cognizant of like how people see me, how people approach, and like even in my short time of being a leader, I've already messed up in ways, like I've already made mistakes here and made mistakes there that I have to go back to my teachers and like, what did I do? What do I do? How do I make amends? How do I do this better the next time? And I think that's something that both of these men, that Sacred Sons, has taught me really well, is that vulnerability of like, I messed up here. Um, what do I do?
Mm,
Rather than trying to hide it, So like going back to the mirror exercise, you weren't trying to hide the charge.
mm,
You're like, let me get this out in the open so it can be there and I can be done with it and I can grow,
mm.
you know? So like all of these things, like I love that like these men teach it. That's something that I try to like teach and embody in my men's group so that other men can move forward and live their life in a more embodied way. And when things are, going awry, they have a safe place that they can come back to and say, well, this month, things didn't go as planned. I'm struggling with this, I'm struggling with this, and I don't know what to do, you know? And we've had beautiful, beautiful moments built off of those kind of dynamics. Of just like, I don't know what to do.
You did a really good job earlier at clarifying that this is your story and
Mm,
that you're not saying anything about anyone should be this way or that way, and that you're telling anyone else to be on a certain journey. What would you say though to men that feel a similarity in your story, that maybe they've rejected some aspects of their masculinity, or they haven't had a healthy example of men, and they're feeling resonance with your experience? What were some of the things that helped you in your curious discovery to figure out what was true for you?
mm. It's beautiful. Thank you. First thing I would say would be to have compassion for yourself. Without a base level of compassion, making any kind of progress and healing is just so much more difficult, you know? But having that base of compassion as you begin walking down the journey, no matter where it leads, you're able to take those steps with, more surety and not take as strong of a step back when, because that very well may happen. Have compassion, and then look for the men in your life that you feel embody a way of how you would want to be. or how you want to comport yourself, you know? So like that's one reason why I was talking about Kevin and Derek is that they comport themselves in a way that I respect, that I find a lot of alignment in. And so I spent more time with them. I spoke with them a lot more, even though at times like it was challenging and really confronting. I wanted to learn from these men that I felt this from, you know. The two of them were the first two men that ever intimidated me on a spiritual level. That like I could just feel from them that they embodied their walk in such a way that I knew I was capable of. I just simultaneously knew I wasn't living up to. So that's another level of this is that like find these men, have compassion for yourself that like yeah, even though it's not going to be the same, you're not going to be the same, and it's going to be confronting, that's okay. Take a breath, have a little bit of courage to face that fear that's going to come up, to just start asking questions. Once you start asking questions and just listening, get quiet with yourself and then start asking those questions of yourself, you know, where is this coming from? Where is it, you know, truly based in? Because I know many people who, like, from a very young age, they, you know, were non-binary, they were trans, and I bet there's no wounding around it. It's just who they are. And if that's who you are, fantastic. But if it's not, then be vulnerable with yourself, you know, and really dig in. If you're identifying out of a wound,
Mm.
then basically any and every time something comes up about it that's in question, it's gonna start revealing that wound, which most people refer to as triggering. But Kevin does this beautiful thing where he talks about it as revealing, not triggering, because it's
Mm.
revealing the wound inside
Wow,
of
I
you.
love that.
Yeah, it's good. So for me, the way I can talk about it in my situation was that anytime someone would misgender me, you know, it was like, no, no, call me this, you know, or anytime someone would question it, you know, like, but why? It doesn't make any sense. Like, but it just is. It just is. I would get angry about it because I was hurt. Nowadays, now that I've healed that wound and I'm back to identifying as a man, I've been called she, her out of accident. I've been called they, them out of accident. And you know what? I don't care. It's like, okay, whatever, let's keep talking. And I move the fuck on with my life. um, But when there's that pain, when there's that heavy, high emotional charge, that's when you recognize there's a wound, you know? And like, if you don't deal with it and heal that wound, then think about it as a physical wound. Like, think about it like somebody stabs you in the arm, in the shoulder, takes the knife out, and then you go around the rest of your life demanding that nobody bump you in the shoulder. You go to New York and you start yelling at everyone on the street going, "Hey, don't bump my shoulder. I'm bleeding." Not dealing with your wounds means you're going to go bleed on everybody else, people that haven't hurt you, you know? But by understanding it and looking at that wound and really understanding what's there, understanding what the lesson is, and then honoring that lesson and like honestly, and this is the part that like gets people celebrating the lesson, you know? Like really celebrating what it meant for you is how you can just truly heal that wound and move on. So that way, if an identity is coming out of a wound, then you can know it and then move on for with your life in a healthier place. And if identity is not coming from a wound, then you're still moving forward in a much healthier place. For me, the whole point is just simply truly knowing yourself on a as deep a level as possible. So that way, every aspect of your life can be lived in the most full and most aligned way.
Thank you for sharing that. That's beautiful. And I'm realizing how important it is for all of us to have curiosity and compassion for one another. And, I love this idea of the trigger revealing the wound because we get to take responsibility for our wounds that show up as our
That part.
triggers and go, here's a wound of mine that needs my attention. And
Yeah.
simultaneously, we get to have compassion and curiosity for one another. Wow, you're another human that's been wounded in this human experience. Wow, you're not the Buddha, you're not Krishna, you're not some evolved saint that there's been a like very select few in the billions and billions of people. Okay. Yeah, okay. We're on this
You have
journey.
emotions that sometimes run rampant. That's okay. Yeah.
Let's have curiosity and compassion and like you said in your own journey, how with the misgendering, that's a perfect, such a beautiful example of how much it used to get you. And now you're like, it doesn't get you. And this is something that we can experience, each of us, in all different areas of our lives. It's like things that
Mhm.
I used to have road rage. People, the way they used to drive,
Mhm.
triggered all the time, revealing my windows. I don't care anymore. I'm one of the slowest people on the road now. I'm not in a hurry to get
Yeah.
anywhere, and I'm just like cruising along. And it's
Yeah.
this evolution that we get to do with one another, and which is great because we're coming back to the beginning of the conversation in how we met, which was like how you having compassion for my wounds, you having compassion for, hey, I want to reveal this wound inside of myself. Can you hold space for me? Can I spray some of this blood all over you so that I can see what's in here? I've got, this is he, there's something here. It's got pus in it and I need to pop it and I need to look at it and to be like, yeah,
Yeah.
to have that compassion. Yeah. What do you got in there? Let's, discover that. And I think that that's a skill and ability and a tool that would make this world a lot different of a place.
I would agree. I mean, like, I think if more people looked back at their life and looked at how many times they received compassion, even small moments, it just makes it that much easier to give compassion a little bit more, like recognizing that you have received. Because when you started saying that, especially when you were like, said the plus thing, it brought this memory back to me when I was in college. I was on a bicycle, um, and I was riding across an intersection, and a car just didn't slow down. So I had to go as fast as I could and then make it to the other side. And I had to take a 90-degree turn going full speed. And surprise, my bike and me didn't quite follow the rules of gravity. My bike keeps going, and I take this huge hit to my shoulder and just rip my shoulder apart. I didn't go to the hospital. I just cleaned it myself and like, went on about my day. But then about 3 or 4 days later, a friend of mine was over and her mom was a nurse. She looks at my shoulder and was like, "That's infected. Go lay on your bed. I am going to like disinfect this right now." And I didn't have good disinfectant stuff. But she went to the most basic she could. She grabbed a bar of soap and a washcloth. And like with as much loving compassion as she
Yeah.
could, um, she jumps on top of me and she straddles me to pin my arms to my chest because she was like, "This is about to hurt a lot," and just starts scrubbing away at my wounds on my arm. And I gotta tell you, whew, I screamed so much because it was so painful. But right when it was done, I looked at it and went, "Oh my god." Because then I was getting used to looking at it all infected, and like I didn't really know what infection looked like at the time, because like other like my parents would have taken care of me, or like just the cut wasn't that bad. I had never really seen bad infection, never really looked at it, never really seen it up close, you know. But then looking at the difference of like, oh, what it looks like after, then seeing that like and allowing that to heal, it was incredible. And then also just the way my arm felt. It had been sore and whatnot, but after those few seconds of just searing pain, my whole arm felt better. And it was still open, but it felt better.
Hmm.
And that same process I found it apply in this kind of in men's work, when you're talking about all kinds of wounds, not just like gender identities, but like you said, like road rage, where is that coming from? What's happening inside of you, like um trauma when it comes to parenting, from your parents or to your children, all kinds of things. This world, really like knocks us around a good bit. And there's a lot of wounds that go unaddressed. But it's like having that compassion for yourself and other men and other women, just other people, to be there for them during that time of scrubbing and just
Ooh,
being there, being like, yeah, this is gonna really hurt. But you've got this and I'm here with you. You
yeah.
know, I found myself later on trying to mimic that same thing that she did in later times, and I gotta tell you, it's much harder to do it on your own. It's a totally different process.
Yeah,
Physical wounds and like emotional wounds and
totally,
all, it's all
totally.
about the same.
Man, that was it. That was it. That was perfect. Thank you so much for coming on, for being on the podcast. Anything that you want to leave the audience with before we go here?
Hmm, man, if everybody can find that love and compassion for yourself first, and always remember to refill on your own love and compassion first, and then allow that to spill out from a place of abundance. Every time somebody reaches that, this world becomes a better place and like a more beautiful place. So the more of us that do that, just the more beautiful and the easier this world gets,
Hmm,
and the more loving this world gets.
hmm.
If anybody would like to follow me or anything, I do daily encouragement videos on TikTok, and I post them up on my Instagram. My TikTok is the present bard. Um,
I'll put them in
and
the
then
description as well.
beautiful, beautiful. My TikTok is, or my Instagram is build with Jaguar. Working on a website right now for my one-to-one coaching that I offer for my men's group and for other events that I'm either hosting or part of. So, I mean, once I have those, I'll get those to you to post up as well. So, I mean, if anyone would like to connect with me directly, be more than happy. I love talking about this kind of stuff. I love connecting with people and doing anything I can to be of service.
Thanks for sharing this journey with me, this wild ride we've been on, and I look forward to continue watching it unfold. And thank you everybody for listening to this show. This is once again Men and Sex, and we're here to normalize these tough conversations, come together out of our isolation, find connection, and grow in our personal power. We'll see you in the next episode. Have a wonderful day, evening, morning, whatever it is for you.